Hello and welcome to Superbwoman Sundays at 7. I'm your host, Janet Neal, the queen bee and founder of the Superbwoman. I'm so glad that you're here with us this evening for our last show of 2014. But don't get nervous because we are having more shows in 2015, another great lineup of amazing Superbwomen. And for those who are new and you don't know what I'm talking about with Superbwomen, let me tell you. I started the company, The Superbwoman, about a year ago with the belief that the world is a mess and that women can make a difference, that women can change this world because we're very powerful beings. The issue, though, is that many of us don't realize that we have any power or we're giving our power away. And so the Superbwoman is all about helping women not only to understand that they have the power, but to help them to get it, to be able to use it, to create and live a sustainable, powerful life that gives back positive energy to the universe, because we all need it. And so I am grateful to be able to have met so many superb women, these women who have taken the time to step back to be rather than just to do. And in that becomes their power. And I'm so motivated and inspired by these women's stories. These are normal women who are doing extraordinary things just because they've taken that time to be. And so I thought it's important for you to hear their stories, and I'm bringing them to you every week. And this week is no exception. This week, my guest is Carey Davidson of the Tournesol Wellness Center. Now, Carey and I met through a mutual acquaintance, Ann Akers. Ann is a publisher of a magazine called Glow. Here's one of her magazines. Oops, this way. There it is, Glow, Beauty, Health, and Wellness magazine. And when I was speaking with Ann, she said, you must talk with Carey. She's got an amazing story. And so I went to Carey's beautiful center and asked her to tell me her story. And it was one of those stories that I was very moved by because it has many twists and turns. And it truly is a story of Carey becoming a superb woman, of taking that time to understand herself. And so, Carey, thank you so much for being with us today.
Sure, and thank you for inviting me. Well, I grew up in Memphis, Tennessee. I was one of 6 kids. We lived for a little while on a farm, actually, on the border of Mississippi and Tennessee. And my family started to become Orthodox Jewish. We were Jewish, and we started to become more observant. And we lived, a little bit of a different life from most of the people in our neighborhood. And then moved into, the central part of Memphis where there were more Orthodox kids. And I went to an Orthodox Jewish school where I learned a very different way of living, but it became very normal for me. But after a while, I started to, I was about to go to high school, and I started to rebel a little bit. I didn't really like the rules, and I wanted to be able to go out on Friday nights and still eat at Burger King and McDonald's with my friends. So I think at a very early age, rules and constraints and outside control didn't sit well with me. And I started to question things, question life, and question religion, question lots of stuff that was going on. But I ended up moving to New York for college. I went to Stern College here. We have Yeshiva University, and I married an Orthodox boy when I was 20 years old, and we had 3 kids together. And I lived that life, and that's pretty much what I knew. It was a very conservative lifestyle, and conservative religiously, socially, and also medically. My medical model for pretty much my whole life up until about 5 years ago was work until you can't stand the pain, whether it's emotional or physical, whatever you're going through, and then call up your best friend who happens to be an MD and say, can you write me a prescription for antibiotics? I think I got strep. And then and that was it. And I was actually, I was seeing a talk therapist, but I didn't want to tell anybody because I didn't want the stigma of not being able to handle my life. Because here I was in this Orthodox Jewish community with these amazing, strong women who all had, 2+, if not 5+ children, and jobs, and husbands, and homes, and took care of all the holidays and Shabbat meals, and entertained, and all of a sudden, I couldn't handle that. How could I not handle my life? And everyone else could, but I didn't want anybody to know I couldn't handle it. I think at one point I had a panic attack. And, my doctor told me, well, it's anxiety. And a friend of mine said, here's a book on anxiety. I think maybe what you have is anxiety. I said, oh, no, 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 I have a heart condition. It was like,
Wow.
it had to be medical. I didn't want people to know that there was a chance I couldn't just handle everything. And so I went through my life like that for some time, and about 5 years ago, my marriage ended, and during that last summer of my marriage, I started to lose about 1 pound to 1.5 pounds a day,
A
and
day?
a day. And I started to have horrible pelvic pains, and I thought for sure I had cancer. It must be cancer. I mean, what else could be going wrong?
Right.
So I was terrified, but it was one of those problems that Naomi, my best friend, couldn't fix with an antibiotic. So this is one of those times I caved and went to see my doctor. And he examined me, and he said, Carey, there's nothing wrong with you. And I said, how can I be in this much pain and have nothing wrong with me? He said, well, what's going on in your life? And of course I started, breaking down in tears and sharing the fact that my marriage was ending. And he said, I know what you need. He pulls out his prescription pad, he writes me something and sends me on my way. I went to fill it, and it turns out it was a bottle as big as my head of Xanax. And I didn't really know how to take it or why to take it, but I figured it was for pain. So I went home, and here I was already, living on my own, with my 3 kids, and I was having pain, so I took a Xanax, and all of a sudden I wasn't in control of of my body so much. I couldn't drive a car, and I started to have a panic attack on anti-anxiety medication because what if my children get sick and need to go to the doctor? I can't drive them.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my first little entree into there's some kind of connection with your mind and your body. And that was only 5 years ago. And I was still in a place where I thought meditation was something monks did, off in Tibet, and yoga was a really slow, boring exercise, and I have no idea why anybody would ever do it. So I really didn't, and I didn't know, I had heard of acupuncture. I didn't know why anyone would do that either. I mean, needles are awful. I really had no basis, for understanding wellness and preventative care other than, the injections your kids get every year as they grow so that they don't get measles. So, my marriage ended, and I started on a little bit of a journey on my own of trying to figure out how to find myself and how I was going to find balance and inner peace. My God, it was just, I never felt like I was balanced. And one of the first things I did was I started to travel by myself. I thought, well, that appealed to me because I didn't have to be tethered to anyone else or anyone else's needs. I could just go to the bathroom when I needed to go to the bathroom, and go into a museum if I wanted to, or sit and smell the flowers for 5 hours if I wanted to. And so I had read a New York Times article a year before, the summer before my marriage ended. It was a front page of the Times travel section, and it was a company called Ciclomundo. And what they did was they put together biking trips through different parts of Europe, and one of the places was Provence. And you could go with a group or you could go by yourself, but what they would do is they would organize the trip for you based on, you know, how strenuous you wanted your biking to be or how many days or what you were interested in, and they would move your bags each day to different towns so that you didn't have to. And I thought, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do it by myself. And so my kids went to camp, and I had about 4 weeks by myself, and I hopped a plane by myself to Nice and landed and was in heaven. And I kept meeting all of these, I just call them angels. I don't know what else to call them, these beautiful people that came into my life and said maybe 3 sentences, or maybe looked at me and smiled, or maybe, you know, gave me directions. I don't know what, but they were just the most uplifting, beautiful moments. And I filled up an entire journal during my time there. And while I was there, I was, you know, biking town to town through the countryside, and they gave us the most ridiculous maps you've ever seen in your life. There are no street signs. There were nothing. No one spoke English. My French is decent, but it was tested. And what I found was that I got lost every day. Every day I got lost, and sometimes it was down, down, down a hill, really big hill, when I realized I needed to be at the top of that hill and turn left instead of right. And so it was, you know, sometimes really painful lost because I'd have to go back up the hill, and I would cry, and I sat down and I thought, okay, I'm here alone in a foreign country. There's nobody for miles. All there is farmland, and I have to get back on my bike by myself and go back up that hill and figure out which way to go. And I knew at the end of every day I was going to find my way. I was going to make it to the next town, and somehow I did. And I thought, okay, this is kind of a metaphor for my life right now, that I can have help. I might have maps, but they might stink. You know, I have language. I can kind of piece the right words together, and maybe someone will understand me. And I can figure out how to feed myself. We can find food. And if I need to go to the bathroom, I can kind of say, you know, où est la salle de bain?
Right.
I can piece all these things together, but no one's going to get back on that bike but me. I have to do it every morning. I have to get up, and I have to make the decision. And so I can do it with a smile on my face, or I can do it, you know, begrudgingly, or I could sit there and not move and be a victim of being lost and cry. So it made me realize a lot of things, you know, that I had to do it myself. And that's where the metaphor of the tournesol came to me, was on that trip. I would see all these rolling fields of sunflowers, and I noticed that all these huge, gorgeous, majestic flowers were all facing in the same direction. And I would also notice that they would shift direction, you know, together during the day. And I finally asked someone, you know, how do you say sunflower in French? And he said tournesol. And that was another, you know, get off the bike, cry, 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 write in your journal. Like, holy cow, this is a metaphor for my healing. You know, yes, it's getting lost and finding my way, but these flowers, I mean, it literally means turn to the sun. And I have to keep my face up every day. I have to turn to the sun every day and know that whatever I'm going through now, as painful as it may be, you know, there's something good on the other side. There's a reason for this struggling and this suffering, and I'm going to come out better and more courageous. And so that's what I want people to walk away with when they come to tournesol, when they come to the center, is that we give them the strength and the support, but that they know that every single day they can make the choice, you know, to live a happy life, to live a healthy life, and to, you know, to have the tools and access to what they need, you know, to make sure that they live well and beautifully and happily. So that's most of my story.
Carey, that's just beautiful. I just love, you know, the metaphor that you have there. It's so uplifting and powerful, and such a great example of how it's on for yourself. So, with that.
Thank you.
And I have about tournesol, what you offer there, how that came about that you decided to.
Sure. Let's see. So now it's about so this trip to Provence was 4 years ago, about 4.5 years ago. 3 years ago, I went back to Paris by myself for Thanksgiving. And while I was there, I got stood up actually on Thanksgiving night. I had plans. I thought, well, how can I go to a foreign country and be alone on Thanksgiving? And so I figured it out. I made plans to meet someone I knew from the United States. And no call, no apology, no nothing. And I went back to my hotel room and I thought, holy crap, I'm alone. And the tears started to, they formed, they were about right here. And then I thought, wait a minute. I said, I can take a shower, do my hair, put on some makeup, put on a cute outfit, and walk out into this world and decide that I'm going to have the best night ever. And so I did, which was it took so much for me to be able to do that at that point in my life, but I did, and I walked out and I scanned the main drag where I was staying in the Montmartre and to see, well, where am I eating Thanksgiving dinner? And I looked up and there's the name of this cafe right in front of me was called the Hope Cafe. And I thought, that's where I'm going.
Perfect.
And I happened to have the most memorable Thanksgiving I've ever had in my life. I sat at a communal table, round table by myself, and it was a tiny place. Maybe there were 8 other people there, and the owners of the place were like walking around and speaking to everybody, and so I started up a conversation. Another person came and sat at the table with me. Another person overheard the fact that I was from New York and had worked at Columbia University, and she piped in, and we shut the place down at midnight. It was the best night. So the next day I did reconnect with the person who stood me up. Yeah, he said, something wrong with his email. It wasn't going through. Maybe it doesn't matter. We ended up hanging out for a little while, and we went for hot chocolate at a cafe. And while we were sitting at the table, something pretty magical happened. He grabbed his chest and looked like he was having a heart attack. Frightened me, but the words that came out of his mouth were, "What are you doing to me?" And I thought, I'm not doing anything. I'm having hot chocolate. And he said, well, no, I feel heat, like these waves of heat and prickles coming off of you onto me, and I feel like I'm rising up out of my chair. I feel like the world is falling away. And I'm frightened, and it's a weird feeling, and I'm scared. And I said, well, I've had that feeling before a lot. My whole life I actually feel that. I thought everybody felt that. And he said, no, it's not normal. And I said, well, wait, what's going on? So in that moment, I realized that I was different from most people in that I could sense, I was very sensitive to energy and to the way people were feeling, and from that moment, I kind of kicked into this space where I had this intuitive ability to help people heal, and I could just sense what was wrong, and what would happen was it was more of a sense of the emotional place that was maybe the physical, the physical manifestation of an emotional pain. I could sense where we were holding on, like, I could feel where people feel stress. I could sense, you hold that in your stomach, or you get headaches or something, and I can help people shift that out. It frightened me greatly because, my old medical model was antibiotics if you were dying, and so it was very strange for me, and I didn't talk about it for some time, but I observed what was happening to me. I was still in my very corporate job, in my very Orthodox Jewish world, living my very normal, in-the-box life, and this was kind of happening underneath. And I started to see patterns emerge among people who would come into my life, and I saw what sickness looked like from an energetic perspective, I guess you would call it. And it kind of looked like a roulette wheel around someone's head, and the roulette wheel had all of these spaces where we keep, you know, all of our emotional stuff. Like, here's the space for family, here's for work, here's for relationships, you know, here's for my charity work. And I would start to see kind of, you know, where people get stuck. And then I looked at our medical model, you know, like, well, what do we have to help people feel better in our, you know, that's accessible to us? And our medical model kind of looked like this, and our illness looks like this. And I thought, well, what if I created a medical model that actually looked like that, and would actually meet people where they're not feeling well and fix all of those components in one place. And so that's what Turn a Soul is. It's got all the components that actually contribute to a really comprehensive, integrative healthcare model. So it's client-centered care. It's guided wellness. It's you know, our clients come in and they meet with an RN and they have an integrative, holistic health assessment, and they're guided towards the modalities and also the therapists that are the best matches for them and their temperaments and their preferences and their personal goals. And then we have more than 40 different modalities of integrative healing on site. And it's also, there's an education component, because I felt like, you know, the one thing, it's great to have an amazing session with your therapist, no matter what kind of therapy it is, but then what happens the other 6 days a week when you're not in your therapy session? Yeah, I need to know, I need the tools in my back pocket to know that when this happens, oh right, that's when I take a step back, take 10 deep breaths, and I don't respond right away. You know, we don't know those things. I didn't know in my marriage. I didn't know how to be in a relationship. I really didn't. I knew how to be a victim, and I knew how to be codependent, and I knew how to argue about whose day was worse. You know, I didn't have these tools, and so this would have been really helpful. And the last component is to have community. When I think back to the times in my life when I made a lasting change, I was supported by and I was accountable to a community. And there was, you know, the time in high school where the community I wanted to be a part of was, you know, the cool kids who didn't necessarily get the best grades and didn't necessarily tell their parents the truth about where they were going Friday night. But I wanted to be a part of that. So come hell or high water, I was going to be that kid even when I wasn't with them. So when I was at home, you know, I wasn't respectful of my parents, and I embodied that. And then when I became, you know, I was married and I was in an Orthodox Jewish community, there's no way in the world you would ever find me walking into McDonald's even to buy a cup of coffee or a Coke, because I was accountable to that community. And now I'm in a community of beautiful, amazing, kind, you know, compassionate people who are just accepting of everyone, and they celebrate each other's beauty and abilities and achievements. And I think about that all the time in all of my interactions with people. You know, I check in with myself. Is this, you know, oh, is that something someone in my community would do, or someone I look up to would do or say? And that's just, you know, on my own. So I know that community can be really empowering and healing. And loneliness is, you know, there are lots, it's as many people as there are in New York, there's still a lot of lonely people here. Mm-hmm. And to serve as a community, a home base for someone that at least they just know that we're there, is a tremendous healing, you know, impact. And so all of those things together can really serve, you know, to bring about lasting happiness and health. And that's what Turn a Soul is.
Beautiful. So. Beautiful. And it's a lovely facility. So, and what's the address again?
It's 26 East 36th Street. We're in between Park and Madison.
Wonderful. So I wanted to ask you, so you just described beautifully all the aspects of being a superb woman. And one of the things is releasing shoulds. Do you have any shoulds that you've released in your life?
Well, so in preparing for this conversation, I was trying to narrow it down to one. But I think the most appropriate one would be yeah, it was almost, it was a shouldn't. Is that okay?
Yes, that is
Um,
just fine.
okay. Well, I don't know. I can turn it around. I should trust and believe in my own intuition because for so many years I believed in and I gave over my power to people who fit the bill as someone smarter or better or more educated than me, someone who could do this Sunday New York Times crossword puzzle because I can't. And somebody who went to an Ivy League school and somebody, all of those things. I attached worthiness and intellect and power and strength and ability, and I felt I was inferior, and that what I thought doesn't matter as much or doesn't hold as much validity or weight because I'm not any of those things.
Mm-hmm.
And it took me some time to realize that I could believe in myself and trust my intuition. After I kept seeing it work. I kept seeing, wow, I do know the answer, and I actually can help people, and wow, I can do this. So that's, the should is definitely connected to trusting and believing in myself and not having to attach, oh, well, Ivy League or,
Right.
crossword puzzle.
Right. 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 Because doing a crossword puzzle is really important.
Yeah, right.
So I can't just have a few minutes left, but I know that you did an awful lot of work on your own. Trying to find yourself, and kudos to you. You've done a beautiful job. But my belief is that we don't do this by ourselves. So who's somebody that has helped you on your path?
So the person I think who is most significant is my friend Corinne Nielsen. And Corinne became a friend first through a mutual friend, and then she's actually my business consultant at Turnusol. And Corinne has built several successful medical facilities in New York, and there's nothing she doesn't know. She's like everything. But the thing that she did for me is, I will tell her, she really saved my life. She walked in when I was probably it was probably 2 or 3 years ago. I was about to sell my house, and I projected a woman that was probably 4 or 5 inches shorter than the woman I project right now. And what she did was she celebrated the beauty in who I was every time she saw me. She would recognize. She goes, "Oh my God, can you believe you did? Look what you did! You did this. You did that. You achieved this." Constantly, and I hadn't had that in my life. I had a lot of, people pointing out what I couldn't do and what I didn't achieve and what I could never possibly do. But on a regular basis, Corinne would point out, what I was capable of, and helped me believe in myself. I mean, aside from all of the business help and advice and guidance and support, and just to be able to put one foot in front of the other. And on some days, she taught me blue sky day. She's like, it's a blue sky day no matter what. Look outside, even if it's raining. It's a blue sky day. Celebrate.
It's blue sky.
It's a blue sky day. It means that today is a gift. Today is a gift, and it's beautiful no matter what. Yeah, you know what? Just the same way as like the Turnusol, knowing that I have to face the sun and believe in myself every day. It's even through difficult times, through challenges that may be incredibly painful, where I question everything. Know that I have strength and power to turn it around, and it's really in my mind. I can turn around my mood. I can turn around the way the day is going. I can say, okay, this didn't work. Let's shift it up, and what's next? It's not, oh, this didn't work. Well, forget it. I'm going to fail.
Right, right.
um,
Well, that's fabulous. So tell us what's next for you.
So what's next? Tournesol is thriving and growing, and it is blowing my mind at every moment. And once we get this one completely, finished and as our flagship set, and I plan to open more centers, and I want to open a 501c3 also so that we can deliver our services for free or on a sliding scale to people who can't afford it. So that's next.
Oh, fabulous. Well, I wish you all the best with that, and just much more continued success with what.
Thank you, Janet. Thank you so much.
Well, Carey, thank you so much for being my guest tonight. It was just a truly amazing story, and I'm so grateful that you took the time to share your story with us. And I want to thank all of you out there for watching and for watching throughout 2014. I wish you the nicest, the best, the most wonderful, heartfelt holidays. And I look forward to seeing you in 2015 on Superbwoman Sundays at 7. Go to our website at www.thesuperbwoman.com and click on the tab that says Superbwoman Sundays at 7 to see who's coming up next. I'll look forward to seeing you then. Be well.